He claimed to have killed 37 people throughout California. Only 5 were confirmed, but that doesn't make him less of a criminal. The Zodiac Killer was Northern California's ultimate nightmare between 1968 and 1969. He was never caught. More than 50 years after his crimes, the Zodiac remains nameless. His real identity was lost in the notoriety of his attacks. But some believe that his identity has long been revealed. If there is truth to that speculation, only his crimes, letters, and ciphers can tell. The Zodiac Killer's grim tale started with the murder at Lake Hernan Road on December 20th, 1968. His first victims were young lovers Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, a high school couple who were out on their first date. That night, about 8 p.m., Faraday picked up Jensen in her home and promised her parents that he would return their daughter by 11 p.m. They didn't keep this promise. Instead, they headed to Lake Herman Road, an area regarded as a lover's lane, to spend some quality time together. The killer parked his vehicle beside his victims' cars before shooting them both. Faraday was shot once, while Jensen, who tried to escape, was shot 5 times. She died immediately at the scene. Faraday, on the other hand, was still breathing when rescue arrived, but died before reaching the hospital. The murder of 2 young people and the thought of a deranged gunman on the loose horrified the community. Was it just a random act of senseless violence, or just the onset of a more terrorizing tale? Months after the incident, on July 4th, 1969, another horrifying event occurred to teens at Blue Rock Springs Park. This was located in Vallejo, 6.4 kilometers away from the Lake Herman Road murder site. Similar to what happened to Faraday and Jensen, a mysterious car suddenly pulled up beside that of the victims, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Maggio. The man, who they initially thought was a police officer, got out of his vehicle and shot them both multiple times. Thinking that the 2 victims were dead, he walked back to his car to escape. He was about to run off when, upon hearing a little cry from Maggio, rushed back to shoot him a few more times. All in all, the killer shot Maggio 4 times and Ferrin 5 times. At 12:40 a.m. on July 5th, Ferrin was pronounced dead at the hospital. Maggio, on the other hand, was lucky to be alive despite the severity of his wounds. From his hospital bed, he was able to describe his assailant. He said his attacker was around 5 feet 8 inches tall, with a bulk stature, large face, and curly light brown hair. There were speculations that Ferrin previously knew the killer and that it was one of her many admirers, but there wasn't enough evidence to support this. So, who can it be? At 12:42 a.m., 2 minutes after Ferrin was pronounced dead, a mystery man called the Vallejo Police Department to report and at the same time claim responsibility for the crime. The caller also took credit for the murders of Faraday and Jensen a few months before. Authorities traced the call to a phone booth at a gas station at Springs Road in Tuolumne. This was approximately 500 meters from Ferrin's home and only a few blocks away from the Vallejo Police Department. According to Nancy Slover, the police dispatcher who answered the Zodiac's call shortly after the attack, the man spoke in a low, monotone voice. He said the exact statements. "I want to report a double murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." Authorities from Benicia and Vallejo started to look into possible suspects. They checked the connection between the 2 crimes. As they worked on the cases, they feared for the killer's next move. And indeed, another gruesome attack occurred. This time along the shores of Lake Berryessa, around 30 miles north of Napa. It was September 27, 1969. College students Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell were just out there enjoying their time along the shoreline when Hartnell noticed someone lingering nearby. Horrifyingly, after a few minutes, the man, who was wearing a strange hooded costume, started walking towards them. He told them at gunpoint that he is an escaped convict looking for money that he can use to fly to Mexico. Then he bound their wrists. Just when they thought that the shocking ordeal was over, the assailant brought out a foot-long knife and stabbed them several times. Afterwards, the man walked to Hartnell's car. He drew a crossed circle on the door, writing beneath it, Vallejo 12-2068. 7469 September, 2769 6:30 by knife. What happened next was a scene straight out from serial killer movies. At 7:40 p.m., a man called the Napa Police Department to report a double murder. He led authorities to the crime scene and then said, "I'm the one who did it." Police were able to trace the call to a payphone at a car wash in Napa and were able to recover a still wet palm print. Unfortunately, they weren't able to match it with any suspect. Hartnell survived despite having 6 stab wounds. Shepard, meanwhile, died a few days later after experiencing 10 wounds. It didn't end up as a double murder, just another unresolved crime, and it wasn't the last one. Just 2 weeks later, on October 11th, another attack was reported. It wasn't a young couple this time, but a 29-year-old cab driver who was just out there trying to make a living. The killer hailed the cab driven by Paul Stein and requested travel to Washington and Maple Streets in Presidio Heights. He shot Stein once in the head at point-blank range once the car moved past Maple Street. Then he took his keys, wallet, and tore a part of his bloodstained shirt. This is the most interesting Zodiac crime since there were witnesses who saw the attack as it unfolded. 3 young people saw it in progress from a house across the street and promptly reported it to the police. This gave the authorities the big opportunity to capture the killer. However, the dispatcher mistakenly described the suspect as a black male instead of a white one. The witnesses described the murderer as a white man, approximately 25 to 30 years old. They said he was wearing eyeglasses and sporting a crew cut. These details resulted in this sketch and poster. It was said that a patrol car passed by a mysterious man who matched the right description, but wasn't questioned because he was white. A big mistake that dragged on the mystery for years and years. On October 14th, the San Francisco Chronicle got a letter from the Zodiac. It came with Stein's shirt as proof that he was, indeed, his assailant. In that same letter, he also threatened to murder kids on a school bus. Imagine being an investigator and a police officer and going through all the anxiety that comes with the job. Every mistake can cost someone's life. The letter authorities got after Stein's death was not the first one that was received from the Zodiac. After the first confirmed attack in 1969, he started to reach out to newspapers through letters containing details only the murderer would know. The San Francisco Chronicle, Vallejo Times-Herald, and San Francisco Examiner received similar notes, all postmarked July 31st, 1969. On August 4th, 1969, another letter was sent to the San Francisco Examiner, this time a 3-page one, providing more information about the attacks which had not been released to the public. An iconic letter since this was the very first time he addressed himself as the Zodiac. Along with the first 3 letters came mysterious ciphers. Each one was accompanied by 1/3 of a 408-symbol cryptogram, which the killer claimed contained his real identity. For many killers, sexual offenders, and other criminals, reaching out to authorities and sending in artifacts equate to easier identification. They are putting themselves at risk by sending handwritten notes. The Zodiac killer was a menacing exception. He called the authorities twice to report a couple of his murders and sent several letters to news outlets. But the most intriguing of all these correspondences are the ciphers. A cipher is an algorithm used for performing decryption or encryption. It is a system used to make a message a secret by rearranging the letters. The Zodiac killer has sent 4 ciphers. 2 of them have already been solved. The very first cipher, called Z408, was sent on July 31st and was quickly cracked on August 8th of the same year by teachers Donald Jean and Betty June Harden of Salinas, California. It only took them 20 hours to crack the code. Surprisingly, it didn't contain the Zodiac's identity. John Lynch, who was then the Vallejo detective sergeant, was disappointed that the hidden message turned out to be just random senseless thoughts. Reading it, though, provided a scary insight into the murderer's mind. What was not so surprising was that the phrase, "I like killing," appeared somewhere in the cracked message. His possible motivation for killing also surfaced when he stated that he was collecting slaves for the afterlife. He said he could not give up his identity since it would slow down or stop his collection of slaves. Another one of the 4 ciphers, the 340 cipher, was already cracked by a team of mathematicians more than 50 years after the Zodiac terrorized Northern California. It was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle office in 1969. It was solved by Sam Blake, an Australian mathematician, Jarl van Eyck, a Belgian computer programmer, and David Oranchak, a software developer in Virginia. They used a computer program to analyze its 650,000 text permutations. By the 5th of December 2020, they submitted the results to the FBI. It revealed a message: "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show," which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid of death because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death. The TV show he was referring to was the Bay Area talk show, The Jim Dunbar Show. The cipher was sent a couple of weeks after an individual claiming to be the Zodiac murderer called the TV show. An arduous task that gained them recognition, but didn't help the case, since the name of the killer wasn't there. It remains an ongoing investigation both for local law enforcement stations and the San Francisco office. Over the years, people intrigued by the Zodiac's killing spree have pointed fingers at numerous suspects based on mere circumstantial evidence and speculation. Many who follow the case would easily say that it was Arthur Lee Allen, a California schoolteacher and child molester who was interviewed by authorities several times throughout the Zodiac investigations. It was said that he lived in the Vallejo area, where the first 2 attacks happened. He was also close to Lake Berryessa on the day of the crime. There was a lot of circumstantial pieces of evidence, but physical evidence wasn't present. Moreover, his handwriting didn't match that of the Zodiac's. The prints and ballistics in the crime scenes didn't match him too. Most importantly, he didn't resemble the thin-faced suspect in the 1969 sketch. If it is not Allen, who? How did he manage to escape after all these years? Whether Jack the Ripper's 20th century rival still walks among us as an old, feeble man, no one knows. As the authorities study clues a long way back in time, we wait.